Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to What's Your Story with Mike Lindstrom and Scott Leese. Welcome to 2026. This is our first episode of the year 2026, episode number 14. It's hard to believe. Time is flying by. I want to do a quick intro of our guest, Patrick Antrim. Patrick Antrim's been a friend of mine for 15 plus years. I would call him a coach of mine in many ways. He lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. In fact, the studio that we recorded the podcast is in, you can see our big digital board with the big logo on the back. That is filmed in Patrick's office. Half of his office is a studio for live events and streaming events. The other half is NectarFlow. He's the founder of NectarFlow, CEO of NectarFlow, a big AI play that's coming out. You're going to hear a lot from Patrick on this episode talking about AI, language model learning, how people are learning, how are companies using AI. This is going way above and beyond just simple chat GPT. So we're really excited to have him on our couch and talk about his history as an entrepreneur. He was the chairman of Multifamily Innovation Council. They do these big live summits where he specializes in multifamily. And he grew from multifamily, that niche, into the world of AI. And he surrounded himself with an amazing group of researchers, professors. Had dinner with them just the other night, and this is like top secret AI stuff that he's not even able to talk to us about, but he gets on our couch and talks to us a little about where we're headed with AI and how we can use it, not only as entrepreneurs, but as everyday people. So my man, my friend, Patrick Antrim, enjoy the episode. Everyone, Mike Lindstrom and my friends, co-host Scott Leese. What's your story? Next installment, excited to have our friend Patrick Antrim, founder and CEO of NectarFlow. He's going to talk about that today. We have worked together on a few different projects, recording live on studio, but today we're going to put him on the other side. Usually he sits next to me on some stuff. So first of all, how you been, Scott? I haven't talked to you in a bit about...
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good. Excited to be here, man.
Yeah.
It's hot as hell.
It is hot as hell. He came in from Texas, so it's hot out there, so we're surviving the heat.
This is a different level,
It's a different level of heat.
Yeah.
But our next guest is used to the heat. He comes from Scottsdale, Arizona. So Patrick Antrim, welcome to the show. So we start off every single one of these podcasts with the same question. We look for the abbreviated version. You can tell us whatever you want, personally or professionally, is what's your story?
I think I'm still figuring it out. I think that's part of it. I think early in life we kind of plan and we make decisions about what our future is going to be like. And I think sometimes that story changes. And that's one of the things when I look back at all the things that I've done to create value in the world, it's been about showing up, being present where I am, winning where I'm at, and then always kind of thinking about where the world's going, leaning into what's next, and then skilling up. So early in life, I trained as a professional athlete, so I had all the scholarships and all that stuff, so I wasn't really going academically around getting a degree and staying and anchoring down in an industry. And so for me, it created a lot of insecurity, candidly. In fact, I felt like, well, I was just a professional athlete, so I go in and I'm managing multi-billion-dollar portfolios. I knew I needed to be on my game. So I became obsessed on learning, obsessed on just kind of being vigilant about what's next and how do I create value and how do I compete with the MBAs. And now the world's caught up, and now I'm just one of the many that are just thinking about how do you create value instead of like how do you get educated to hold on to information.
You like how casually you just threw in there he was a professional athlete?
Yeah.
By the way, you know which team he played for?
Sadly, yes, I do.
The New York Yankees.
Yeah.
The New York Yankees. I'm a Yankees fan. Patrick knows this. So, but let's start there real quick. I want you to be a little bit selfish. I know you don't love talking about yourself when it comes to some personal things, but I like to expose some of my friends here as we sit on the couch. Tell us how your career in baseball, when you've parlayed that into what happens after baseball, the things you learned and what you brought into business because of you being a professional athlete.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people see professional athletes on TV and they think it's like, nice and it's amazing and they're paid well and all that stuff. And I think a lot of people underestimate that they've been doing that since they've been 5 years old, right? So there's every summer, travel ball, missing, in college and all that stuff. You're the one not doing the fun stuff because you're on a mission to go to the next level. But I think early in life, I trained as an athlete, allowed me to later develop others as leaders. I think that's where it came down to. A lot of when I retired, I met the owner of my agent introduced me to the former owner of the Mariners baseball team. So when I transitioned from baseball to business, I had a soft landing because I was in like a World Series game in business every day. And I felt like I was still kind of connected. And it was nice because as a professional athlete, you're really an employee. You don't have control of your time, even the location of where you live. You can't ski, you can't play basketball. There's so many things that are not seen. And in pursuing something of that caliber and being around winners at that level allowed me to, be a constant learner, right? Just develop a self assessment of like when something's not working, like make an adjustment, figure it out, get a coach, mental coach, physical coach, like get around people that can help you win. And so when I went into the real estate portfolio, running apartment portfolios, it was interesting because I wanted no one to know anything about baseball because I wanted to be, known as someone that can do other things.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of shoved it down for like 10 years. But we get into the capital conversations. That's all people want to talk about. So what was going on with the Yankees? But the reality is in business, how I created yields for some of America's wealthiest investors was collecting the right people, getting them working effectively together so they can show up and rent more apartments, essentially drive yield. And if you think about it, that's really what a high performance team is doing. And the early days of journaling in the Yankees allowed me to pay attention to those things that give you that edge, one moment over time.
You still journal?
I don't do it like I used to in the journal you have there.
Yeah.
I do it in different ways. I do it now with audio. I'm talking to AI. I'm journaling in notes so I can collect information and summarize it better. But one of the things I liked about journaling was just kind of getting it out of my head because I needed somewhere for it to go.
Yeah.
But using the voice allows me to kind of do it more at scale. And then I can search it. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't figured out like that. If you're talking to neuroscience, they'll tell you, the writing piece still matters and all that.
What's written is real, man. I beat that up.
Is the level of obsession, you use the word obsession, is the level of obsession different in the requirement to be a professional baseball player versus top of your game in business? And if it is different, how big is that delta?
Yeah, I think being an entrepreneur, it is the best training I could have ever gone through. Just especially baseball, being that it's a failure sport.
Sure. Yep.
The haters, and especially the Yankees. Immediately you say Yankees, you lose half of the viewers, half of the half of the audience. I think, a lot of people quit and retreat before they actually see the reinvention or the progress that they need to make themselves, right? And in baseball, and I've written about this, I'll speak to the Yankees, they have, the minor league system. That minor league system is there to develop leaders. So winning's off the table. It's about development. So they're creating fail-safe environments for people to learn about themselves, make adjustments to the wooden bat, travel ball, under the lights, fans, all that stuff. And so you're kind of manufacturing repetitions. And I think entrepreneurs, we all want it to go well off the bat, but some of the greatest ones know that they think long term, right? They don't rush the process. They're looking for every advantage that they can, and they know that when they strike out, so to speak, that they believe in themselves still, and they could take another swing. Even when there's a whole season that goes by. Imagine that last strikeout in the last game. You have to sit the whole off season and then come back to spring training and begin again. Every day, every pitch is a new moment. And I think that's the hard part in business, is because information is spread today differently, held accountable in different ways. And there's, people aren't spending the time to get the reps in.
Yeah. Can you tell, because I know this, but I want my audience to hear this, or audience to hear this, the lineage of when you left baseball and you had this multifamily niche, and then you've done production. You've done so many different things since I've known you in the 12 years, and now we're at AI, and we'll get to that in a minute. So tell us a little bit about how that progression has gotten you to this point. Because I know every 3 or 4 years, I can count on you. You're going to pivot to something that's new and innovative. Every time I would come into your office, you'd get the dry erase board out and start saying, Mike, think about this. Like, you're just such a good visionary. And not only do you just have that vision, You go find the resource. You go find the training. You'll find the mastermind, and you've done that. So I want people to understand, you didn't just leave baseball and you just were thrown into business. You had success. You had every single company that you've built has gotten us to this point where we start talking about nectar flow. Can you give us a little glimpse of that?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's easy to connect the dots after, right? But now all these different steps and phases have been more clarity, I think. I mean, there's two bottlenecks in business, all businesses have, and that's their ability to connect with talent, right? Build teams, that's what a company is, nothing more than a collection of people, and attention. And you think about attention is like awareness, brand, marketing, inbound leads, revenue solves all problems. Those are two bottlenecks that companies don't always know how to solve, and they rush. See, one of my advisors is the former head of talent and organizational capability at Microsoft. And so he's had great scale, but he's also a cognitive scientist, anthropologist, or cognitive scientist. So he knows how the brain works, what patterns emerge where you can predict performance. And when you go through this process, one thing that's compelling is that the anthropology studies of how culture is formed, they have the answers to all the culture issues that companies have.
Yeah.
But they're not really motivated to make it for profit or to change the world in that way. And the business leaders, you see, they want growth, they want returns, they got a quarterly report, they want it now, and they're not willing to do the stuff that the scientists know will make the thing happen. So on one end, the answers to all those problems are there, right? So it's now how, for 30 years I've been bringing people together through events and employees and things like that. Now we're bringing the technology together to pull leverage the same way that these, some of the wealthiest people in our world, they know leverage. They know debt, they know equity, they know partnerships, all that stuff. And to some degree, those are uncontrollable. You're waiting for interest rates, you're waiting for deal flow, things like that. But with technology and AI, and if you can bring people together and get attention in the world, you have control over that. That means any leader can walk into any organization, regardless of the size of that organization, and make an impact. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking for markets that have those boring businesses. I'm looking for those businesses that are undermanaged, under-leveraged, or under technology leveraged. We can go in there and make an impact.
Yeah. Can you give me examples of that? What would be some good sweet spots? Because Scott and I work and consult a lot of different clients who would see that, say, for example, boom, boom, boom. What would be some of those that viewers could?
Well, anywhere people are entering data twice, right? People are moving data from system A to system B. Contracts, legal, finance, multifamily, it's our focus. A third of Americans rent. The process is...
where it needs to go, taxes.
Taxes, right. So,
big time.
And that's a good point because...
We'll get there.
We haven't had to, right? So in multifamily, there's been so much wealth created through leverage, through debt, and just appreciation of value that there hasn't really been a necessity to innovate. And if you look at what Elon did with Tesla, I don't know the whole story here, but I think it started off with Lotus and trying to do something and using another battery. And those things actually, that process failed, right? And so they had to pivot. They had to figure it out, build their own battery, build their own supply chain, and re-envision the chassis and all that stuff. And so a lot of times things start out as something different, but if you can understand where to look inside the business to create value, it's like an opportunity that business leaders that have expertise haven't yet realized they can unlock. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
I call it like subject matter experts.
Yeah, SME. So you talk a little bit about AI. You're working in AI. The existential dread of the moment is none of us are going to have jobs at some point in time. And those of us who have teenagers are being asked questions like, what do you tell your high schooler to study? What do you tell him or her to focus on, to learn about? How do you prepare, right? So what's your answer to that kind of moment that we're having out there?
I actually have an answer for this. And this answer is, we are really young in this whole transformation that we're all living.
Like a newborn, basically.
Yeah, we are. And if you think about early airline travel or early vehicles, these things didn't have seatbelts. we are early in all of this stuff. Now, the good news for those that are, and what that means is there are also people that are uncertain. This is an invisible technology. You buy a building and you see the building. You can kind of see what it is and kind of, that's how the world has been, a physical world. This technology is, we're talking to it. It's, a lot of people don't understand it. The more complex a thing is, the more time it takes to truly understand it. And so I think there's just setting like, you're not alone. Many other people feel this way, and you shouldn't feel wrong for feeling that way. This is where leadership is the advantage, where I believe that there's an actual shortage of people that are going to translate their subject matter expertise of how their work happens. Could be landscaping, could be plumbing, could be something frontier, something exciting, but boring business. People know how their work process works. That's value, like a language model that isn't indexed, right, in their mind, in their thought. And so I think that's really where, if they lean into trying tools, playing with AI, getting around smart people, attend all the conferences, listen to the podcast, you're working on this. And so get around people that are learning these things and sharing these things, and then be that person inside your company to be the one that's going to solve these problems, because it's going to rearrange work, and it's going to unlock new jobs that were, go back 60 years, nobody thought that there would be a influencer, or like a
creator, content creator.
Content creator, or what are you talking about? A social media managing expert or whatever. Like, it's just, you have to be along for the ride, and you either go with it, or you will find, someone will find a way to replace you. Because if you're holding on to I'm a good multitasker, or I'm the one that can do that report, that's not a high value for you.
Well, you're not going to be able to compete.
No.
Either.
There's no way.
I don't care how good of a multitasker you are, right?
So
You talked earlier about increasing the number of reps, and one of the things that AI does is it allows you to have an infinite number of reps all at once. Yeah. So let's say we wanted to work on a logo. Mm-hmm. Okay, first rep would be our first draft. We have feedback. It takes us a week to produce rep number 2, version number 2. I can get an infinite number of reps of whatever the logo looks like that. Any kind of forecast, any kind of report. And the same thing goes in sales. When I got started in sales 20-something years ago, the reps that I was getting was every time I picked up the phone, if somebody answered, I'd have opportunity to practice.
Yes.
Right? Today's early sellers don't have that same opportunity to get those reps in real time and live fire, because people don't pick up the phone as much as they used to. So now they're relying on AI coaching tools that they can role play with to get those reps.
I love that.
And one of the things that I tell people who ask, how do we prepare for this? The first thing I tell people is just use the fucking tool.
Yeah.
You have to start using it. I don't even care how you use it.
Yes.
Talk to it like a friend or a therapist. Help it,
Sure.
ask it to do some small tasks for you. But if you're just against it or afraid of it and not using it at all, you're going to be in big, big trouble.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be the expert inside your company. What about be the expert inside your family?
Yeah.
Or inside your friend group? Even that is enough to start the process, I would hope.
Yeah, right? I love the way that you share that, because, a lot of people in the early stages now are using it like, oh, I can write this and do this. But the reality is, this is a thought partner. This is, it used to be the CEOs would have a panel of experts. They'd have a great attorney, a great accountant, maybe an assistant to do something, and now you can ask these language models things, and they can coach you in what you're talking about. The other piece of this is we still have to think. So in learning, there still needs to be some tension, right? So the reality is we have to kind of learn how to relearn, because most of the bosses out there grew up in a world where the world was built differently, and they're holding people accountable to a process that they're familiar with. But you have this new there's a lot, it's exciting, a little messy, but an exciting time if you can figure out the leadership piece. That's what I'm excited about.
What was the moment in time in the last, let's say ChatGPT is going to be, 3 years old on November 22nd? Happens to be my birthday. No correlation there, but I remember it. because I'm thinking, what is this thing? And doing speaking events and asking live audiences, hey, how many people have heard of this? How many people are using it in November, December, or January? 90 days in, no one knew anything about that. Now, the same audiences, it's completely the opposite. So looking at that time frame, which is a very short amount of time, and you say, okay, where in the last 3 years for you, where was a moment in time where you just think, I'm leaning in on this really hard? What was that thing? What was the aha moment for you that said, that's going to be something I'm going to pivot to harder?
Well, I mean, we were already doing APIs and automations and things like that early on. When ChatGPT came out, we immediately started doing inference and RAG systems. This is essentially private data in context to responses to improve the work. So we built a lot of early applications for that. But as we built it, it moved. I was one of the 300 developers last year invited to OpenAI's Developer Day up in the Bay Area. And so I got to literally speak to the head of, the reasoning models and things like that around this. Like, hey, is this really? Does the API, is it caching? Like, is it safe? Like, and so we were thinking of it as it was a consumer interface to make it easy to talk to a language model. It was really what ChatGPT was, and it became viral and all that. Yep. But it was the business case users that were like, well, don't use it, shut it down, you can't do that.
Yep.
Same thing with social media. They did the same thing, And so what I went to do is when I was there and they gave us early access to things before the world saw it, and that was the real-time API. And that's where it took a conversation to voice, which means now the computer can understand us. Before it took code. So when I'm hearing real-time API, I'm now hearing, okay, wait, normally before that it was message, transcribe, send it to a language model, send it back to text-to-speech, give answer, chatbot. Mm-hmm. And now real-time, all that in the middle went away, and it's basically a human conversation in real time. So the processing power there got me to think like coding's going to change. It's going to be different. SaaS, not really that interesting anymore, because the value is going to be in the business leader and their ability to bring use cases to the business. And so we leaned into voice. That was the big thing then. Mm-hmm. And now we're using voice in many different applications that allow us to do things that normally people aren't set up to do well by typing or organizing their thoughts, but they can speak the truth. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when we have a product called Picasso Hire, and it's, your resumes, right? So a resume comes in, it's a stick figure, it looks like, right? It's like, doesn't tell you much. And the Picasso Hire is like, we want to give them the full picture so a human can make a decision. But what's happening is people aren't getting found because they're burdened by resumes, all this stuff. But with voice, we can actually interview up to 100,000 people at one time. Right? We also can describe who we want in the role better than putting it on a job description that someone in compliance and HR posted on an internet site somewhere. And so we can speak to the people hiring and say, what does winning look like? What are the competent, like who was that was in this role that really, what did they do? How did they do that? And they speak it. So as our voice agent's interviewing this person, we're building a language model or context window that then when a resume comes in, we're matching to that. Mm-hmm. And that isn't possible when someone's typing on a Word document. These are the jobs, you have to lift 50 pounds and this is, it's like fluff. But now we've actually created competencies and success factors for a role. And this is a great way where we're using AI for good. And people are going to unlock jobs. We're going to find the diamond in the rough. Mm-hmm. And we're going to solve a bottleneck problem, which most companies have.
Let's talk about some of the use cases for evil or bad.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people are worried about. There's no gates or controls. You mentioned the seatbelt thing earlier. I've heard this analogy before. It's like, well, we had cars without seatbelts, and then we put a seatbelt in.
But
you don't even notice the controls show up because it just sort of slowly integrates. Mike talked about how ChatGPT is turning 3. I would ask you or anybody, tell me what you couldn't do in the first version of ChatGPT that you could do now. Most people who are using it couldn't tell you the difference. It's just slowly
that's right.
kind of evolved.
Invisible, yeah.
Yeah, it's invisible. So where are the areas that you're worried about, and where do we need to put some kind of control limits on them, if anywhere?
Yeah, well,
especially in business too. I mean, I know about kids and plagiarizing and all that stuff. In a business context, I would love to hear the answer to that.
well, number one, I don't have all the I don't know, right? I don't think anybody knows. But here's what I will say. As you think about this work, like fire or electricity, we're working towards, I think, standards. Like when we're in real estate, we build apartments and stuff like that, right? So we know that there's electrical sign off now, there's codes. We're just in that early stage of all that stuff. That's all being worked through. Like you mentioned, the seatbelts and things like that. But to me, when I'm doing things, I'm picking fail-safe things to do it on. I'm not doing things that are in the frontier. I'm not doing things that are going to put data at risk, things like that. And so that's why I focus on the boring tasks, automating, summarizing documents that are in a PDF, sitting in a drive somewhere. You're not really generating much from that. You're kind of looking at data you already have. The biggest issue, I believe, that most enterprise companies have right now is misinformation. There's a lot of people that know some things and they share. They want to tap into momentum. They want to be seen as an expert. It's almost like professional malpractice, right? So I look at it at that kind of a level. Like, if I was a doctor, I'm going to read the Journal of Medicine, let's say, because I actually care about my patient. And so if something you do helps the patient, I'm going to tell them to go see you. I think everyone's fighting for commerce and like, I want to sell my product and outpace the other, and we're better than them. And I think you got to step back and create these environments where you're actually thinking about the customer. And there's 5 different things, if we have time, we can go through them, that I think are very interesting in how we approach that. What we're doing about it is, this is an innovation lab here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And what we're doing for the multifamily industry and even beyond that is we're elevating that game for a technology and AI center of excellence. So we want to bring education to decision makers so they can make good decisions about business, because that's really what they're doing with AI. They're like, can I do it more efficiently? Can I help my teams not want to quit after 90 days because the work I gave them sucks, right? So there's a lot of great things there, but I don't know enough about it. Then I know that companies are I need to do something, they're hiring consultants. And sometimes those consultants have work that they're working on in certain sort of commerce, even automation platforms, that this is on a laptop somewhere and then they quit and you don't know where that stuff goes. So I think you got to be in an enterprise environment. You may want to build your own things, but you have to bring, I think, the right people together to do that. But I don't know enough to, talk about.
But that's, actually you do, know enough to say, I have no idea, which actually is probably the only correct answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Right now is that nobody actually knows.
Yeah, we're all kind of figuring this out.
Yeah.
And so if you're figuring it out, it stands to say that do the things that make sense, that that if you automate it, it can be in an enterprise environment. The data is secure. It's not on, for us, it's for the technical ones, it's ISO 27001, just means that, there's a rigorous test, not just a counting timeline audit, but like how was the software developed? How is the information stored and organized? But you see some of the great companies in the world that have issues with tech. I think there's probably a broader conversation with what data do you even give it, but everything we're doing is at the API, which means we're not training public models, in the work that we're doing.
It's becoming a thing. I have to sign agreements as a consultant. I don't know if you're running up against this. Like if I have a company XYZ, it now says in my agreements are certain things, even if I'm creating my own material for them, that the limitations are to let them know or limit that. So if I take anything that's maybe proprietary to that company, let's say it's the 5 steps of sales according to company XYZ, and I quote that, put my own little content and stick it in ChatGPT, I'm not allowed to do that because I'm taking their information and sticking it out, in a place that they don't want it.
Yeah.
So now there's all these rules and laws that are, somewhat, I don't want to say constraining to me. I understand it. But where's the limit? There's just no way to limit that. You mentioned the 5 things. We do have time for this. So if you want to hit the 5 things we talk about.
Yeah, so one of the authors, Joseph Kazier, he wrote the book Leading in Analytics, and he did some work around the 5 manageable tasks, which came out of Carl Kemp. He's the decision engineer and intelligence over at Intel, and wrote the 5 manageable tasks. Well, Joseph put this in his book, and has a body of knowledge which we're developing, call it an AI success or technology and AI success software that is going to increase your probability of initiatives that you roll out succeeding. So here's the challenge. 80 to 90% of these projects, even data projects, they fail. Okay, and there's these 5 things that you can do to minimize those things. But the reason why is most people focus on one of them, which is a tool. They're thinking about what is the tech thing, what is the solution. They're going right to the symptom. And they're not even thinking about, just because you can automate something doesn't even mean you should. Mm-hmm. Right? Does it make business impact and things like that? So the first one is really just identifying the problem and getting alignment to that executive champion. Maybe it's a business owner or CEO or something like that. Are they sponsoring this? Are they going to support it? And if they solve it, solve a business impact problem? Because that's where you're going to get the support. Right. The second one is you're looking at your team. So, and he calls it, you've heard of minimum viable product. Mm-hmm. Well, this is a minimum viable team. What this means is you're getting the executive champion together. You're getting the process owner. This is the people doing the work. And this is the opportunity for those that are worried about the job. And then you're getting the technical natives. That may be like your firm or anybody that knows how to do the things, put the pieces together, maybe internally. So you're getting the executive champion, the process owner, the people doing the work, and the technical natives together in alignment, right? And that's your second team. So that's the first one is, right? You're identifying, is this problem even worth solving? Is the company even going to support it? The second one is get alignment on that team. The third one is your data. Right, so now you're looking at where's your data, where is it hosted, is it clean, is it structured, unstructured, right? Where can I, who has access to it, do I even own it, that type of stuff. That's hugely important in AI specifically. And then the fourth thing is the tool. So this is like, what are the tech solutions that align with these types of things that can make the problem go away or the opportunity get created? And that's really just deciding which tool is it. Now, most people are learning about these tools inside a sales conversation. Mm-hmm. So there's like, this is the only tool you should use. With us, we're coming with them like understanding their business problem they want to solve and agnostically saying, well, we have some ready to go AI solutions, but you may want to use your tool or Microsoft over here or something over here. Mm-hmm. And so that's where you get the alignment to the tool. But right now, that's where most people are only focused on, okay? And the last thing is the execution, really, and the adoption. Just kind of milestoning, road mapping it, getting some momentum and some quick wins. And most people only do one of those things. They focus on the tool, and they miss the other 4. And the other 4 are the ways that you can take something from a 2% success rate to like a 76% success rate. Improving, that's the business leader's challenge today. That's the people that know how work happens. They can be involved in that. And it's really all leadership. And I know that's not going away. I know companies will have people in the future. I'm counting on that. So those 4 steps, I think, were the most value that can be created.
Yeah. It's powerful. Well, we love asking leadership questions. So do you have any things, if we went and interviewed your team or people that work with you, clients, friends, that are kind of like your go-to statements, phrases, quotes, things you're kind of known for when it comes to leadership? Statements, quotes, anything?
Yeah, I think first principles thinking, testing assumptions, at this, it's interesting because I've operated large enterprise organizations, and you have this executive team, and those executive leaders like to meet with other people and surround themselves with people. Like the way companies were formed were different. At this stage, taking something from 0 to next stage has been one of the biggest challenges for me. I mean, I'm more of like inspect what you expect, and with talking with developers, you kind of start to think in systems, and when you're designing systems, you make sure triple check and that kind of stuff happens. So I think for me, it's just the first principles thinking, because when we work, we develop experience, and that experience gives us knowledge, and that knowledge gives us assumptions and beliefs about what we think will happen next.
Yep.
Well, the world's working differently, so someone like an Elon who can think in first principles thinking is thinking about what are the components that are necessary for this thing that I'm working on, and then with those components, what's absolutely necessary. In other words, absolutely necessary. And a lot of times we assume things are necessary. And then it's like eliminate everything that isn't necessary. And to the point where it almost stresses. And then you add back.
Yeah.
If you're not stressing, then you're not eliminating enough, right? That's okay. The third thing is then simplify then. Because now you're simplifying and optimizing a process to the things that are only necessary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then the fourth thing is really you're accelerating. So now it's like, okay, now we've figured out what works or what we need.
Yeah.
We've figured out what is absolutely necessary, and we've simplified it and optimized it. Maybe we got some SOPs on that stuff. Now let's put the gas on it. Now let's accelerate. And then that last step would be automation, right? And it actually, a lot of people want to start with the automation.
Yeah.
And then they want to accelerate. And then now you're automating and accelerating a process that shouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
Did any part of your answer, did you learn that along the way from coaches in your youth sports, high school sports?
What I just shared?
College? Yeah.
That is publicly available through YouTube on Elon.
I'm asking because I'm just curious how disparate those lessons are from the lessons that we learned from coaches and organizations.
I didn't know I was learning them that young. That's the thing. Now I'm wise enough to look and connect the dots.
So if you went back in there now with your 2025 brain,
I'll tell you this. I'll give you an example.
Oh,
In college, no, in high school, I was like, good all up until high school, and then I got distracted, got a girlfriend, and whatever, and then I got overlooked. I was skinny, didn't have any scholarships, didn't get a single draft, anything, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, baseball's done. And I took a year off and went obsessed on school and took all the units and did all that stuff. And then tried out at a junior college and went in the gym and put on 20 pounds, became strong. And then I'm timing in the summer league, which means like anybody can sign up for this class.
Yeah.
So I'm with like just people that like baseball.
Yeah.
bums.
So I'm my coach, Jack Hodges, he times me, or he's like, oh, Antrim's the only one here with Major League Baseball speed. And I was like, speed? What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I ran like a 7.2 in the 60 in high school, and I was never like known for speed. I was like, that was just kind of shocked me. So the next day, I remember this still today. I'm sitting in the first base dugout, which is everyone else's, the team's over there, and he's sitting down with me like this. He's like, you've got this speed. You should try hitting left-handed. And I was like, all through fifth, 5 years old up, we'd always goof around, and the coach would always like, no, you're right-handed. You're right-handed. Yeah. And so I'm in college, okay, and I'm like, burnout, don't know where I'm going. And he's like, you should try and hit left-handed. And I was like, interesting. So I started hitting left-handed, and I've never hit left-handed before in any kind of competing environment. And what it made me do is it made me begin from the beginning.
And there's a renewal of enthusiasm,
it was, number one,
energy,
you just
spark.
nailed it.
Yeah.
I was excited again.
Yeah.
And you know what else? I wasn't expected to perform.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to begin from the beginning. And the first game I played, I hit a home run, first at bat, and the rest of that was history.
Wow.
And then I still hold records today for stolen bases from speed and from this. Now, that was a shift. in a late in the game, late in the career.
Especially
And
in baseball.
the funny thing is, the Yankees drafted me. Yankees, left-handed hitters. If I wasn't a left-handed hitter, I probably would have been playing for the Cubs or some other team.
God,
But that's a first principle. I didn't know this was. I look back and think about that.
Yeah.
But I don't going through it. I was too young and
Didn't recognize it then.
didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
What year was that in the Yankees? Or just remind me, what year was it that you were there?
95 to 98.
98.
So we won the World Series in 96 and 98.
And so we have a mutual friend, Nick Johnson.
Yes, Nick was on my team.
Yeah, Nick Johnson
on
and
my
I
team.
grew up together. Well, he's much younger than me, obviously, but Sacramento, California. And when you and I first met, I didn't know that, though. Nick didn't tell me that. You didn't tell me. I didn't realize the whole switch to left. That's
Yeah.
all, that's
I don't
almost
even
like
think
a
Nick
metaphor.
knows that. So, funny thing about Nick, he was the best fielder I'd ever played with.
Wow.
And he's just a hitter, too, mash, right? But in college, you're playing. This is another thing about performance, is as a leader, I played with the Yankees. So the Yankees love him or hate him, but they pay well. We'll drive 3 hours to stay in a better hotel. It is we're going to pay, and you're going to get the best. You're not going to wear ripped, uniforms, but you're going to work hard.
Earn the pinstripes.
You're going to perform.
Yep.
But we're going to also perform. In business, in college, you're playing in the games, dirty baseballs, bad hops, under the lights, or bad umpires. And when you get to pro, it actually gets easier the higher you go. And I remember, because when I played in college, I was like, that shouldn't have been an error. You should have picked that, or But man, that guy saved so many. He just scooped up everything. It was like throwing to a goalie over there.
Yeah.
And so, when you're around winners, it takes you. It makes you got to get around winners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soccer was like that a little. I played college soccer, and you start to play on better fields, the better teams you play, the bigger schools, and all this kind of stuff.
Confidence goes.
Right. I grew up playing on dirt mounds with tiny patches of grass. The ball would bounce all over the place. And then you get yelled at oh, you made a bad pass. Then we'd go play at some D1 school.
Yeah.
We'd play them. I'd be like, I can't even make a bad pass if I wanted to on this pitch. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? I can understand that element, how it gets easier a little bit in that regard.
I'll have to make sure we let Nick know that. Nick, he takes compliments pretty well, but he would appreciate that story.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
He's a winner.
Well, we always like to.
So young.
Oh yeah, no, he's still he watches. He's still on Facebook. Always comment about people's baseball skills.
Yeah.
Tell us in conclusion things you're working on. Anything that we can promote? I mean, first of all, thank you for having us in the lab. I call it the lab, the studio. What you all can't see is how big this place really is, and there's so many other parts to just the production and stuff that kind of you used to do in a former life. So it's really been neat for me to see you tie it all together, go from just content creation, multifamily niche, production. This guy knows how to do everything behind the camera, edit, graphics, all that stuff, and then go into AI in the last year and a half and watching your excitement when I meet with you and you'd start dry erasing boards, stuff. So for us to just sit here and have a conversation means a lot. So thanks for having us in the lab. And is there anything that you want to share with what you're working on? Give us a peek or anywhere we can check you out on social media or otherwise.
Yeah, I think the most interesting is our technology and AI Center of Excellence. And again, supporting some of the things, meeting the fears, giving the education, helping executives make the right decisions so they can productively do things around technology initiatives. We're leaning into change management. You're in our theater. There's 90 people that could sit in front of us right here. Yeah. And the reason for that is this is complex. It's invisible, right? It's not something people have experience with, so it takes time to transfer that. And we want to be the solid sort of foundation to not just be someone on a laptop with an app, to give them somewhere that they can go, even train after the sale, to get immersion. So some of these things are seen and played with as much as purchased, right? And so that's the purpose of that. And then we're working on a technology and AI success software with Joseph Kazir, and he's the head of right now the Center of Data and Analytics at Arizona State University. He wrote the book Leading in Analytics, and his team with Terry Rawls. Wow. And we're bringing them into the center to help us move productively in building AI software that will help people increase those chances of success when they're doing these initiatives. So it gives companies a little bit more of like if they want to get certification around that, or a little bit more governance and reskilling employees, things like that. And then for the multifamily industry, that's part of our Multifamily Innovation Council. We have the Technology and AI Center of Excellence, and that's where you can, who do you trust? This is about trust and credibility. And right now, you can go to user conferences, or you can go to take sales demos, but that's the biggest thing that we're trying to solve for, is helping the business leader bring 40% more productivity in their organization, drive revenue, lower their costs, right? And then actually do something great with AI in their business. And we're from the mindset of expansion. Yes, you can cut costs. Right now, we used to have 3 people doing certain things. I couldn't get anything done with the 3 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I invested in technology, and we've 10x'd what we've been able to do by leveraging AI. And the reality was, those people were great people. Otherwise, we wouldn't have hired them.
Right.
They just didn't have the competencies that we needed in today's data and AI and automation to go to that next level.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you have to be courageous enough to make those moves, and the Technology and AI Center helps people make those decisions for their reasons, not ours, right? We just give them the information and help support them. So that's what
what's the website?
we're excited.
Website?
This is nectarflow.com.
Yep, and everything about Patrick. You're on social media as well. You can go on Antrim, on LinkedIn as well. So first of all, I want to say thanks for coming on, but it's really the other way around. It's like, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us
to the lab and talking like this today. So we'll be signing off. Scott, any final questions? Any thoughts?
No, it's been it's exciting to talk to somebody who's at the forefront of this AI stuff, because I've been very interested in it for the last couple of years. So I'm just trying to soak it all in.
No, I love your curiosity, and the questions you're asking are powerful. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing.
That's great. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, signing off. Mike Lindstrom, Scott Leese, what's your story? We'll see you next week. Good job, man.
Cool.